Yet, if we're being honest with ourselves,
Tell the truth.
the real reason we see decline in Christianity, it's this. People are not coming to Jesus because they want Jesus. They are coming with the what's in it for me mentality. Hey there, Happy New Year and welcome to the 2023 season of Church Door. We certainly hope that you had a fantastic holiday season and we're so excited to join you again this year. So if this is your first time joining us, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell at the same time so that every time we put out a piece of content, it's going to come directly to you. And don't forget, every time that we meet, we have a live team of people here that want to pray with you. They want to walk with you. They want to just be there for you. So if you need prayer, if you need somebody to talk to, you can hit us up in the chat or you can text prayer to the number that you see coming up on the screen right now. So let's start this year off with a big question. What do you do when your back is against the wall? When hard things are on the horizon, maybe it's in your church or it's in your romantic relationship at work or even in your family. How do you look at these situations? Do you look at them as if the sky is falling or do you look at them as an opportunity? Unfortunately, when we look at the church today, it seems as if we only see the negative side of things. Whatever happened to, if God is for us, who can be against us? I guess we've just gotten a little bit of spiritual amnesia. So this is what we need to be reminded of. Even against the bleakest situations, God is still in charge and He hasn't lost control. So when we hear stats like this from CEO Tony Morgan of the Unstuck Group saying that 80% of the Christian church are either stuck or on the decline, we just need to step back and get a greater perspective. We have to know that decline in the church is not a new thing. It's actually wavered all throughout the 2,000-year history of the Christian church. We must watch out for our own generational biases where we may believe that our generation is the chosen generation, that maybe we believe that we're the generation when Christ will return because look around, we look at the generations behind us and it seems that their generation is going to hell in a handbag. Yet if we're being honest with ourselves, the real reason we see decline in Christianity, it's this. People are not coming to Jesus because they want Jesus. They're coming to Jesus because they want to get something that He can give them. They are coming with the what's in it for me mentality. Scholars have called this therapeutic deism, like God as a therapist or God as the fixer. For some others, you might have heard it articulated as the health and wealth gospel or God as this kind of celestial banker. Yet this type of faith is brittle and it cannot stand on its own. And certainly when hard times come, this type of faith is decimated. Therefore, it's useless. That's why we see people walking away from the faith. See, this happened with the rich young man who desired to follow Jesus. When Jesus reminded him that the cost that it would take to follow Him is just giving up his rich life, he walked away sad. In his heart of hearts, he didn't want to give up himself and chase after Jesus. This also parallels the modern church in the West. We like the idea of following Jesus and what He brings to our life, yet we are unwilling to sacrifice when it comes to facing the trials of this life. On the other hand, how is it that in the most persecuted places in the world, the church is actually flourishing, like the church in China, which has actually doubled between 2004 and 2018, up to around 34 million people? Well, there's a distinct difference. When the church is staring down the barrel of persecution, their reliance factor goes way up. There's no way getting around it. Following Jesus just might cost them everything. And they have nothing to gain on this earth, yet everything to gain beyond this earth with Jesus. It is in this sentiment that Paul reminds the church how the church is to respond in moments when the world seems to be crashing in on itself. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4, 7 through 10, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to who? To God, not to us." When we have our backs against the wall, it's time for God to display His power even more than He has ever before in our lives. So when Western Christians work themselves into a position of self-reliance, they have ultimately lost all of their God-reliance. Therefore, for many, the storms come, the waters rise, and they run. Which is a shame, because when we run, all we do is miss the miracle of God that is ahead of us. Paul also encouraged fellow followers to hang in there by saying, "We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed, always carrying in the body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may be manifested in our bodies." For many of you watching this video, you're ready to quit. You're ready to leave your church. You're ready to leave a spouse, or you're ready to leave behind a close friend. And while some of these situations might be real, legitimate reasons to leave, I believe the road that God calls His followers to is a road of long suffering and God reliance, which is probably not what you want to hear if you're the one with your back against the wall right now. That's why I want to dig in more today by asking ourselves this question: how can we flourish when everything seems to be crashing down around us? Ultimately, how do we live a life that is less doomy and gloomy and more of the kingdom coming? As Jesus instructed us in His prayer, God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In Hebrews chapter 12, the writer, who many point to being Paul, he's writing to a crowd that actually knows the story of Israel. And for 11 chapters, he gives what he calls a short exhortation and spends time revealing how Christ is the ultimate expression of the story and history of Israel, and ultimately the whole entire world. And as he's winding down this letter here in these last couple chapters of Hebrews, he's reminding them of how to live as they move forward in this movement and how to approach hardships, which will be inevitable. He says this in Hebrews 12:7. "Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as His children, for what children are not disciplined by their father? If you're not disciplined and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are not legitimate, not true, not sons and daughters at all." The word here for endure is the same word that is used a few verses earlier in this chapter, pointing to Jesus who endured the cross. So when the writer is telling you to endure, he's not just saying grin and bear it. He's ultimately reminding you that Jesus endured, and He endured for you on the cross. So here's my first thought. How do we flourish when things seem to be crashing down? We must remember Jesus endured so we can endure. I think there's an even deeper indictment here that we may be passing over. When we are unwilling to endure hardship in this world, it's like spitting in the face of the sacrifice of Christ that He has made on our behalf. Jesus didn't have to go to the cross, yet He chose to, for you, and ultimately for the glory of the Father. So as people of grace, through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, we should also endure just as Jesus did, saying, "For the joy set before Him, He endured the cross for us. Therefore, we should endure for Him." There's also another warning in here that we may miss at first glance, and that is if you are not facing trials, hardships, and discipline, you may just not be His child. Unfortunately, in this culture we live in, many parents have felt the need to pave their way for their children. It's what we call lawnmower parents. These type of parents do everything that they can do to make sure that any hardship or trial are out of the way for their children. Yet this is not God's hope for us as His true, legitimate children. No, God says, I want to equip you as my true child to navigate the true harsh realities of this world, which is plagued by hardship and sin. He wants you to know that when it rains on the just and the unjust. And that enduring whatever you might face is just another opportunity for Him to display His power in your life. Hebrews goes on to explain what endurance with Christ actually looks like. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet, so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. In other words, don't just give up because it's hard. Make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. So here's my second thought of how we flourish when things seem to be crashing down. We ultimately press in and we don't shy away. When hardship comes, we're not called to sit that one out. When the going gets tough, we're not called to sit one out. No, He says there is some hard work to be done when we face trials. He mentions a few things in these verses, and he tells us to press into these things despite our circumstances. He tells us to pursue peace with everyone, not just the people we like, but even our enemies. He tells us to pursue holiness, and this word means set apart. In other words, we are to pursue a life that is distinctly different and counter to the ones we see of people living in this world. You may have heard it said before that hurt people, which tends to be true, especially when we look at the fallen world around us. Well, the opposite is also true of those who call themselves Christ follower. As Christ followers, we are holy people, set apart, who help people. By living a life that is counter to this fallen world we are in, we bring a light of hope to the world that is desperately looking for something more. There's something powerful that is communicated by the testimony of a Christian, that no matter how hard life has been for them, that they can still say God is good all the time. What this pursuit of pressing into holiness does for us is it constantly shakes up our world. It helps us to ask, who am I living for? Am I living for myself, or am I living for Jesus? Matter of fact, at the end of this chapter of Hebrews, it says this: the words once more indicate the removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things or this world, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Ultimately, as we pursue life in Jesus, things within us are going to get shaken up. When we get hit by the realities of life, we will be shaken. Yet when we are shaken, something comes out of us, our selfish desires, our sin, but something continues to remain. And what is it that remains? It is the power of God displayed in and through our life. So my question to you today is, are you ready to be shaken? When we face the hard things of this life, we're not meant to do it on our own. God wants to display His goodness and His power in and through us. If you've never come to a place in your life where you've let the Lord come in and shake up what's on the inside, I want to encourage you to reach out to us. We've got a team here today. We're in the chat. You can hit us up there, or you can text prayer to the number you see coming on the screen, and we want to pray with you. We want to help you make those next steps closer to Jesus today. If this was a blessing to you, we want to ask you to do a few things. Number one, go ahead and give it a like. You can share this on social media with some of your friends and family, because certainly they need some encouragement just like you. Or you can go the extra mile and you can go to rivervalleyrockford.org/give and make a donation there. That donation is going to go to helping other people just like you take their next step with Jesus. We are so glad that you've made it to be here with us today, and we cannot wait to see you again next week. Be blessed.